This is a term that you have undoubtedly encountered multiple times. While there are other forms of crowds or gatherings, tonight our concentration is on political crowds. You typically only see these scenes in football stadiums. But these are political rallies, not football matches. In politics, there are numerous types of audiences. For instance, there are people referred to as captive masses.
They wait for churches, captive crowds.
But you know, praise the Lord. Can we sing together? Praise the Lord.
Bwana Yesu asifiwe.
Usaidizi wa hawa mahasla ni Mungu peke yake.
Funerals, captive crowds. These are captive crowds, hujawaleta hapo, but they must listen to you.
With the exception of captive crowds,
We have the crowd that I call plastic crowds. These are crowds that want to come and see who is this person. They don't have you in mind, but they have just come to see because maybe they have been hearing about you on media or where. They want just come and see you and go back. 2, we have genuine crowds that come because you are at their heart. They want to hear and buy you. Then 3, we have the hired crowds. This is, we call it the cash crowds.
today we will look deeper into the business of crowdsourcing. Is it a way of pulling masses? But where did this idea originate? Let's take a brief journey down memory lane. The late former President Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, who died in 2020, was widely regarded as a professor of Kenyan politics. He endeared himself to the public by devising techniques and tactics for rallying masses to his cause to accomplish his political agenda. Tactic 1: create a functional structure. Moi was well aware of this truth. And who better to carry out your wishes than the youth? As a result, the YK92 group was formed.
The lobby group I led in 92 was just 23 young men, business people. One thing is, for you to qualify, you must have your own money.
KANU was in problems and the opposition was getting stronger. And, they needed an organization of young people like us to make sure that we help the party.
And they were bought into the idea of KANU retaining power.
Tactic 2: enforce attendance.
Rais kama alikuwa anaenda mkutano mahali fulani, hivi vitengo vyote vya serikali kuanzia rikulu ile wa chini inaitwa mkasa, walikuwa wanaambia watu kwamba siku fulani Rais Moi atakuja mahali fulani mkutano, na wanaambia watu na watu watakuja hapo, na matuka yote yatafungwa, watu waende wasikie rais anasema nini.
They are to ensure that even schools around were closed. School children and everybody will go to the road to greet the president. At some point it was so bad, if you are found with your shop open when President Moi was addressing a rally nearby, your license will be cancelled. That's how bad it was.
Tulikuwa na watu wanaitwa KANU Youth Wingers. Hawa walikuwa wanatembea kuta kama wamefungua tuka, wanafunga tuka na wanakuamrisha uende mkutano.
What capacity would a businessman have to intimidate?
Tactic 3: use money. Now that President Moi had established a structure and his meetings were filling to capacity, he needed cash, and a lot of it to keep things running smoothly.
He buys popularity. He actually asked me to go to State House here in Nairobi. So he went to one of the briefcases, he opened it up, and then he closed it until he got to the right briefcase. and he took 2 bundles and threw them at me. I could not say no, because of course it would be very dangerous to try and counter the president.
This phenomenon will spread throughout the country, wreaking havoc on the economy.
And then comes YK92, and the thing that they were selling was money. They had loads of cash, mobilized young people on the basis of what they were offering at any one meeting, or trying to buy, leaders.
That money was there for the taking, for those people who would become his disciples.
The YK story is a scapegoat. We came in, did a clinical job, finished what we wanted to finish, and moved on.
And moving on swiftly, I'm sure you have observed a distinct pattern of how individuals and masses will be mobilized to attend gatherings and rallies. However, as the proverb goes, old habits die hard. Many leaders who followed President Moi appear to have adopted and perfected his crowd-pulling strategy. NTV followed in the footsteps of former and current politicians to better understand the value of crowds. And to help you understand more, we have summarized the strategies employed by the late former President Moi into a handbook.
Pelekeni habari kwa kila sehemu.
To start, everything requires planning. More specifically, planning is your primary duty if you're a politician. So this is the first tactic in the handbook. So, how has the current crop of politicians employed this tactic?
Any politician who wants to deliver a certain message will be happy to have a crowd. One, a big crowd, but more importantly, a responsive crowd.
Demand always necessitates supply, and when this occurs, an astute politician will instantly recognize who to approach.
If I wanted to get an ex-sub-county to turn up, kuna wazee, kuna vijana na kuna wamama, na kila mmoja wao wako na network wao.
And a lot of times when politicians come into these bases, these communities, they will look for youth group leaders and they will look for women leaders. Men are always there. Men are always constantly discussing politics. You don't have to call them.
When I'm going to a particular place, I just call and tell my women leaders, youth leaders, I'll be in this place. Please make sure we have attendance of people. And they'll go out there and bring people.
Chamas play such an important role, and people don't realize. These women's groups, they're the ones who are organized every week, contributing money to distribute for school fees, for businesses. They also make political agenda.
That's my upange. That's my iwe organized. You must spend money. You have got people you rely on that are dependable, that when you get them to do something inafanyika mara moja.
And those codenamed dependable are the mobilizers. These are the youth leaders and popular individuals from various areas assigned the responsibility of crowdsourcing for politicians. We meet this man, both a youth leader and a mobilizer, and for his protection, we will christen him John Juma.
Kama rally ni kesho, tunapatana. So kuna youth leaders. Kwa hizo konjezi kuna youth leader. Yenyewe youth leader wote wanaenda meeting hoteli usiku. Alafu sasa hao ndio wanarudi, wana spread kwa youth leaders award. Sasa youth leaders award ndio wana mobilize wale vijana wa ward. Sasa wewe kama youth leader wa ward unaambiwa kwa ward yako tunataka vijana 50 ama vijana 30.
Wakikuja wakwambie ni aje, tuko na shughuli moja hapa hivi, nataka tumwende mchachishe tu. Si most of the time naitanga bumburush. Bumburush, tuende kubumburusha mtu, yani in short. Kwa hivyo tunatoka base tunaenda ni kitu kama 1 hour ama the whole day, so inalingana, inategemea.
Now that there is a network of handy, dependable men and women assembling crowds, a politician must work out how to bring the crowds to their meeting or rally, leading us to the next tactic.
You will bring them, you will transport them.
In every constituency, there will be buses to ferry people to Buhungu to meeting in Kakamega.
Kama wana mobilize bodaboda 500 na kila bodaboda anakuja na watu 3 ama 2 amebeba, you just have a crowd already.
When you have a function, let's say I am having an empowerment for, let's say, Mama Wasoko, so they'll come as recipients, and they have friends who will hear mtu fulani anakuja na watakuja.
Umefika aje huko mama?
Mimi? Yes. Mbunge wangu ndiye alituleta hapa, Peter Sowene Wood Chief.
Hello?
Martin Peter Sowene. They were one.
Mmepanga kwa basi ama mmekuja nini?
Ametupanga kwa basi.
Yes.
Bila malipo. Tumekula bila malipo.
Yes.
Tumeona Nairobi bila malipo.
na mtarudi tena, mtarudishwa na
vile tulikuja ndio tutarudi.
Yeah.
Ferrying people in buses and motorbikes is arguably a preferred mode of transport for many, but not everyone agrees.
Ever since I started working for this party at a very young age, I haven't seen any money being used on mobilization.
Why are school buses being used to ferry people for political purposes? So what happens if there's an accident? Will the parents of that institution buy another bus?
One critical component of this process is determining how much money to use, and for this, a politician will need to loosen their purse strings. This is where tactic number 3 comes into play.
Politics and money are inseparable everywhere, even in an established democracy like the United States.
It is very expensive to run for office. Conservative estimates, kama unataka kuwa MP, lazima uwe na kitu kaa 10 mic depending on your constituency, inaweza kuenda as high as 50 mic.
Some of those expenses are legitimate. Trucks, water, pamphlets, flyers, venues.
Presidential bro iko huko kwa billions, kwa sababu we imagine to cover the whole country. Unaona hizi machopa watu wana hire hiyo kutembea kutoka one place to another, ma delegates kuhaya ma venue, ma branding, ile yao ni crazy bwana.
I mean, the area where you get a bit muddy is, are you paying folks directly to come?
Muddy may be an appropriate addition to the expression politics is a dirty game. And for others, dirt may be a good thing, and oftentimes those ready to take a risk win. So what does this risk entail?
It depends on how deep your pockets are. There are individuals who are known to, splash millions of shillings for them to have a rally.
Some will openly boast about this.
I have capacity. Kama ni shilingi ni kwa shilingi. I have built capacitance.
Some square na wasiwasi, we are under control. Everybody, mtu yote amekaa hapa paka ende nyumbani na lunch. We have capacity.
Also, it might serve as a source of political banter for some.
Sasa wanaingia ni membamba kama shindano, lakini baada ya mwaka moja amefura kama kupe.
Mtu analalamika watu wakitoa sadaka. Huyo ni mtu anapenda Mungu kweli?
Clearly, money is a significant factor in politics. And if you're wondering how much money goes into mobilization, wonder no more.
It has become big business to organize crowds.
When you have rented crowds, you pay them.
It's worth an arm. It is too much.
A lot of money goes into security and mobilization.
Nowadays, I think I'm being told, if you want to mobilize in Nairobi, huwezi ukafanya less than $1 million.
Yes, that's what they are talking about. Na mimi naambia a million. Ya wakati huo sisi tuko natumia 50,000.
At least 1.5 million, depending. Members of parliament for a meeting. One meeting. 1.5 members of parliament.
You must facilitate them. Wakuwe na airtime, wakuwe na movement, you know, kwenda mobilize watu.
Mimi napewanga na 200,000 na tafuta vijana kama 100.
Hiyo mobilizer anapewa vido ngapi na nyinyi sasa mnapatiwa vido ngapi?
So hapa kitu uvari. Ina depend ni event gani, alafu ina depend vile huyo mobilizer amesema amepewa huko pesa ngapi, ni sasa tuwezi jua. Sasa kuna days unaweza pata tuseme hata 2,000. Kuna event zingine unaweza pigwa hata 500. Kuna event zingine utasema tutoke huko tukirudi base ndio tutapewa, tukitoka huko umeenda sare.
Some of us have no option but to at least appreciate the support people have given you. Today we are with you in Shinyalu. You saw after the funeral service, I had hundreds of people following me, dancing sukuti, singing praise songs. Now how again do you now tell those people now you go home? Thank you so much. They will lynch you.
So when I was buying, they called me poor because I know how not to give.
Raia wa US will support candidate. Huku kwetu candidate anaangaliwa kama source ya do.
Due to this perceived addiction to political freebies, some Kenyans have even coined certain phrases. I am sure you've heard of yule mheshimiwa ni mzuri lakini wale wanamzunguka ndio wabaya. Or perhaps more appropriately, yule mheshimiwa hayuko ground.
When you say huko ground, they haven't tasted your money. Ground ni pesa bro. Ground ni pesa. Ground inamaanisha wewe kwa kila harambe, kwa kila matanga.
The current on the political market used to be your ideas, your integrity. Now the current has shifted to Kenya shillings. It's how much you can pew out that will dictate how many people will come to see you. Yeah, but if you're on the ground means they are filling you in their pockets. Not your ideas. No, your ideas are not interesting. Because people know these ideas don't make sense.
Unaona kama mimi nikikuambia niko home, ujue tu sina pesa. Juu ukitoka kwa gate, kuanzia kwa uochi wako, amekuja na nini, school fees ya watoto. Ukishuka mahali hata kama umeenda tu kusimama kwa ukuta mahali ujisaidie, ukitoka nje kuna crowd watu wanangoja wanasema mheshi tuachie yetu.
Wajua saa ile nimeingia kwa hii driveway, kuna watu ambao walikuwa wamejipanga hapo mlangoni na wananiambia wewe Esther, wewe Pasaris, wewe ni mchoyo, hutoi pesa.
Maurice's entourage started off at the Webuye airstrip before heading to Misiro and finally his Mbakalo home. But it was a bumpy ride home as a group of youth pelted his convoy with stones.
Hamuna pesa, nini wakumu? Mwende! Apati kura hapa, mwende!
Wafula Otiato, a lecturer of sociology at Kenyatta University, explains why this purported addiction to handouts is so widespread.
An average Kenyan has lost hope in the political system of this country. And that's why even 10 shillings, fellas will queue. If you walk around, politicians hardly give more than 100. Me and you, under normal circumstances, you know, even those people in the villages, they know that 100 shillings will do nothing. But you realize that that is the only one you can get out of it. If you refuse it, you will go zero.
However, all hope is not lost. Kenyans have voted people into leadership positions without taking money. Among them, Igembe South MP John Paul Murigi and senior politician Koigi Wamwere.
My opponent was very rich. He would go into his campaign with about 100 vehicles. So to do this campaign, I would use matatus. I would ride in them. I would go and stop somewhere where there was a village with a person I knew. And the following morning I would wake up sometimes In that village is where I would wash my clothes, and people were mesmerized.
Given the presence of crowds, how does one recognize a mobilized crowd?
The ones who shout the loudest.
You bring 300 people, you cause them to be where the vehicle is going to stop, they surround the vehicle. The moment your person start talking, they start shouting.
Unapata kwa watu 30 ama watu 40, watu mbao ama watu 10, wale wezi tulia, wale ni watii. Sasa hao ndio wanaenda pale chini. So mimi najua hapa, hesabu yangu hapa, mimi najua tuko watu 40, watu 10 wako pale chini kwa gari, wale ndio wanakaribisha mgeni.
Jadhuru wa umar. Bwana Yesu
wale ndio wanapiga pale kelele, wale frimbi, hao ndio wanadance hapo. Mimi najua watu wangu 10 wako hapo. Ule pia kama ni watu wake mbao, anajua watu hapo mbao wako hapo chini. So unaona kwa grau huko juu, unaona sasa watu wa chini, mimi najua hesabu ya watu wangu hapo.
When there is some kind of support in terms of relations, it is homogeneous. The noise, the support will come from all the quarters.
Wale wanakubaliana mimi tubadilishe uchumi nione.
If you have hired crowds, you might not homogeneously distribute it on the audience. So you find that maybe 1,000 people are on the right, and then on the left they are quiet.
Munasema bottom, alafu tuende up. Yani munasema bottom up. Ni bottom up. Wangapi wanakubaliana na mimi bottom up?
We have the uniformed, mobilized crowds. These are meant for media coverage.
That means somebody is given money and a t-shirt for them to come to those crowds.
So people have the tendency of using these crowds internationally. Like, I want to ask for support from UK or US or where. The way they will see my crowd and color, that this is really ODM, this is really PNU, then the donors, those who support, will support in terms of that.
The issue of political fanaticism also came up.
Fanatical supporters will follow you without any pay. And I think there's only one person who has fanatical supporters in this country. Raila! That is Raila Odinga. He has die-hard supporters.
Ukiwa na Raila Amolo Odinga, wewe unataka nani mwingine nje? Because Raila na wale watu wanaitwa suicidal supporters. And if this thing can touch Raila Amolo Odinga,
meet George Bodo.
This country should be disbanded and everything.
A mechanic at a shop near Wilson Airport, who is a self-proclaimed staunch Raila Odinga supporter.
I'm a dad of Baba number 1. I don't want to preempt Baba losing, because that amounts to, Article 42A of the Penal Code, the treason. That's preempting the Baba losing. That's treason, my friend. Yeah, pursuant to Article 42A of the Penal Code, treason charge, the death penalty. That's preempting that Baba is not even in the ballot.
Once the crowd has gathered, the politician must devise tactics to keep the crowds fired up while conveying their message. And the tactic here is simple. Know how to excite the masses.
You need first of all to have prepared before you came here. It's not an accident to know that what is your crowd.
It doesn't matter whether the crowd is organic or is mobilized. You must know what to tell that crowd.
Whereas you cannot be so straitjacket in politics to just get into the podium with kizugo mingi. You have to find a balance between entertainment and real issues.
Tulipe ushuru, mizigo itoke haraka.
So you must also find spaces for having light moments.
Mimi sina mengine mengi jameni. Unless mutaninulia lunch sijui.
That is very true, and in politics that's the truth. One, first of all, you must have
carrier material of your message.
Nairobi is proud to be the first city in the world to host this very important and exciting conference.
The carrier material of your message is what will hold the message in the people.
Governor 047, thank you for welcoming us in your city.
Carrier material are the sweet words.
Dunia nzima ilijua pia Sonko decides to switch the other way. Sema, this is the headquarter.
You see, you give 3 sweet words and plant 1 seed.
We checked crowd reactions when important issues were addressed.
Ile ingine ni mambo ya ardhi. Pwani hapa, sio? Hayote zinajua. Manake kama maji inakosekana, kama inakuja, inafuatana na njaa. Ama sio?
Young people educated so that they can stand up and contribute to the development and welfare of our nation.
Versus when speakers made purely humorous remarks.
Akifika hapa, naita ndevu. Bado ni nini? Ikifika hapa kwa kifua, naita malaika. Bado ni nini? Lakini ikiingia kwa kwapa, na huko chini, niliambiwa lakini nimesahau.
Nimesalimiana na jamaa mwingine hapo, amenishika mkono. Karibu ikuwe kama ile ya Mutua.
Is charisma. Charisma, number 1. Charisma, number 2. Charisma, number 3. So somebody like Ruto has charisma. Raila has charisma.
You have to have a connection. And you have to have good public speaking skills. Some of the stuff is learned over time, and some of it is just natural.
People like the late Martin Shiku.
Anasema tengeneza mkono moja tena
Kijana wa Malwa. Those were orators. People just yearned to listen to them.
A crowd in a political rally, in a campaign, is like you are dealing with pre-unit kids. When you're going to handle pre-unit kids, you must look for child play. So you introduce content slowly, very little content, but with a lot of child play.
NTV tracked down Joseph Kubende in Bungoma County, whose specialty of using songs and narrative in the native Bukusu dialect was instrumental in convincing the voters to oust current Senate Speaker Kenneth Lusaka from the Bungoma County Governor's office, resulting in the election of current Governor Wycliffe Wangamati.
I came to this campaign with an understanding that people may not necessarily vote for you because of your good blueprint. People will want to be emotionally connected to you. So what I did was to find a way of creating Bukusu folktale, using Bukusu folktale and manipulating them to our advantage, in the sense that tilting them to mean to make it look like, in fact, the gods, the universe had conspired to liberate Bungoma in such a way, and that is why this story was formed. That's why this story was there.
With talent, charisma and everything that appertains to attracting crowds, a politician will only need to focus on one crucial tactic, and that is offer hope.
So your first word that comes up to your mouth is hope. Always tell people how much you can do all these things, but don't be definite.
The science in politics is simple. It's about hope. There is nothing you have to sell to the people other than hope.
If you look at these guys, they'll tell you bottom up. Raila is saying something called? No, there's something up chini, there's some economic thing about rural economics or something of that kind. But it is not very definite. It cannot tell you exactly what does it mean.
Munasema tuanze hapa chini, hapa kwa bottom, alafu tuende up.
Tunataka kusaidia wale wafanyabiashara wa chini.
Don't be definite. Just splash very hopeful slogans. People want hope.
Siku nzuri iko mbele yetu.
Be lofty and extravagant in promises.
Hata warembo wetu wenye mnafanya ile kazi ya jioni, kila mtu atapata kadi ya NHIF.
We are going to encourage the planting of trees to be used as part payment of dowry. So as you go to pay your dowry, unasema ulipanda miti ngapi.
Tunaweka bilioni 50 kwa biashara ya hawa watu wa chini.
Kila jamii ambaye hawana mapato watapata shilingi 6,000 kila mwezi.
Once you're elected, then you have now a responsibility not to give new hope, but to deliver on what you promised the people.
Crowds are important in politics, and we chose the simplest illustration to explain this. Keep an eye on how these touts fill up empty spaces in the matatu. Unsuspecting passengers hurriedly park the matatu because it will take less time to get filled up and exit the bus stage. It immediately begins to overflow, and the touts disembark the matatu. These touts are what we shall refer to in politics as hired crowds, and ostensibly, as a politician, you must use the crowds to create perceptions.
So numbers give an indication of what could happen.
When we see the images of politicians meeting crowds, the larger the crowd, it creates a perception of this is where everyone is going. They must be going there for some reason.
For any politician, he is excited by crowds. I don't think there is any politician who would have an issue when he or she attends a certain function and finds a huge crowd. It's even good for the optics.
This is what it feels being in an empty stadium. No fans, no euphoria, no energy. It is something that might not interest you at this moment. Now, we were here just a few days ago and this place was almost lifeless, if you might say. But take a look at the difference that the crowds have brought in here. There is energy, there is some enthusiasm, there's some sense of belonging. And that is exactly what crowds can do.
Politics sometimes is as a result of perception.
And perception is what creates momentum in politics. The political prowess is showcased when you have big crowds. Huh? As a politician, again, if you go and address 5 people and you're looking for presidency, I don't think people will take you seriously.
Perception can be bidirectional, positive or negative in nature. On the plus side, perception is exploited to attract numbers to a politician, and the more the numbers, the greater the appearance of clout.
Look at William Ruto. He concentrates on crowds. Look at Raila Odinga. He's the master of crowds, and therefore it helps in creating the perception and also swaying opinion. There are some people who are undecided in terms of they don't know who to vote for, and they always want to associate with the winning team. Such people will use the measure of crowds to make a decision.
This desire for numbers is so ingrained that it derives from some fundamentally opposed to issues of family planning.
Family planning is the enemy, because some of these guys want to become politicians for life and their kids for life. So they know the child born in 1990 is now 30 years old, is going to vote for me for president. A child born in 2007, when Kibaki was here, is going to vote for me 2027. So they have voters in perpetuity.
You know, Wazungus over the years have told us family planning is fake. It is fake.
We have enough resources in this land of ours to be greater numbers than we are. In fact, if you ask me, we are not enough. Greatness is in numbers, and greatness is in these children. People get married, make babies.
This pursuit for good perceptions through data has now migrated to the digital media.
Social media is very useful because that's the fastest way of disseminating information to the masses.
Numerous politicians have hired skillful Kenyans to work in their media teams. They are responsible for various tasks, including photography, videography, graphic design, and social media marketing. So, how exactly do media teams work to create positive perceptions for their employers? It is simple. Employ the art of iconography.
In art, we have what we call iconography, the art of telling a story through a photo. Any political photo must tell a story, and therefore you do not do a close-up if you want to achieve iconography, or if you want to have a political photo. If you do a close-up, then that's the beginning of your problem, because now you'd be advertising your eyebrows and your nose and your mouth, yet people want to see crowds. Huh?
No, I don't give instruction, but I think they know what they are supposed to do. Lazima anajua, when he needs, anajua, if unajua mtu yako ya communication, yeye ni mtu ya relations, yeye ni mtu anataka kufanya kitu mzuri. So he knows what to do.
People who have now focused on some cameras, whether they are concave or whatever, that somehow spread the public, in that crowd, or even having a multiplier effect. Yeah?
Fish eye lens.
Fish
eye.
The fish eye lens, and you see, there were like 100 people, but when you look at that photo, you see as if there were 1,000 people.
That's very real. I agree with him. They do it deliberately to hoodwink the public that indeed we have a crowd.
As previously said, there are two sides of the coin when it comes to perception generation. For a politician, it is not only about winning over the public, it is also about painting a picture of your opponent as undesirable.
The idea of crowds for hire, renting crowds, is a reality. And any serious politician must accept. Others will be beaten. Even your own opponents will organize people to beat you up.
To bolster this notion, some of the youth involved must become intoxicated.
Sometimes hata wengine unaona unakuja mkutano wako hai. Yaani washaweka fuel. Ndio aogopi ile kufanya sharing na kusema anything.
Kila mtu napea kama ni punch ama susaba. Na bado tunawabayati hii. Bado ndom kwa ule mtu atakula. Bado lunch kwa hapo bado tunawapeleka lunch.
If they have a very big crowd and it ended peacefully, do you know how hard that is? Peacefully. Because mind you, your competitor has paid people to come and disrupt.
Ile yote atingoje. Lakini kwa sababu kuna Mungu mbinguni.
Hello? Hawa wanaume wananyoroshana hapa ovyo. Hiyo ni vitendo ya waoga hawa.
Kwa ile kuenda kufanya vitu mbaya ama kufight mahali ili aingie, tunapanga na 200,000. Anaweza kupea hata 100,000. Hii anatoa haraka. Bora tu mnaenda kuharibu mali ama kuharibu mali stronghold ya opponent wake.
Kama mjumbe wenu, sitakubali mtu yote akuja aseme uongo, na akisema uongo nitaangalia vijana wataandika viboko kabisa. We are not going to allow.
Unaona mikutano zetu, hata hizi matango unaona sometimes nyumbani. Naona watu wameenda, wewe ukikuja wanakushangilia. Na mwingine akikuja kelele. Unafikiri inakuanga bure.
haikwangi bure, inakuwa imepangwa.
Mambo ya kutupa mawe tuache kutupa mawe.
Throughout the country, there have been countless incidents of heckling.
Gojeni. Wale wako nyuma wanisikiza, wewe endelea na muziki wako hapo.
While others may be able to ignore the heckling, it might become overwhelming at times, eliciting strong emotions.
Wacheni ukuzi. Hapana, no. Hapana. Siwezi kukubali. Kwani mmekuja kutupigia makelele hapa?
Tafadhali vijana, waacheni mambo ya vijana. Wewe, wacha kwanza nimalize. Hapana, ajitete wote, mimi naongea.
As a politician, when you are on the podium and you are looking at people, it's very easy to be destabilized by this crowd power. Even if one fella just shouted you down, you need power to overcome that, because that fella now would represent the crowd. It's like the general really saying no.
Wafula Otiato, a sociologist, analyzes why even the brightest and most reasonable people may resort to hooliganism in a crowd.
So when you enter a crowd, you collapse your emotions into this animal called crowd. And its contagion power is like an external force which has taken over you. Once you enter a crowd, you lose your individuality. The crowd has the power to destabilize you, however bright you are, to the extent that now you become irrational.
So if you have had a successful, large crowd peacefully, just know there are people who have muted the violence.
The heckling is not only limited to rallies, but also on social media platforms. As a result, the digital space has been transformed into a political battleground.
Social media, people should be careful with it because it's a very potent, loaded weapon.
You know, we have something called Bachelor of Science in Social Disorganization. This is a course in quote. This is a course that one takes his time and lifestyle to study how to disorganize institutions, how to disorganize elections, how to change the grounds of a person into somebody's grounds. And that is through the think tank, the thinkers. These are serious thinkers, and I want to believe that His Excellency, the Deputy President, must be paying heavily this department. They are ahead of the pack. By the way, let's be very honest.
So I'm the biggest victim of hashtags. Wait. So nowadays, anyone who's running for any office or anyone who's trying to share anybody's name just creates a hashtag. You pay some people and they trend it for a day like this. So when you Google someone, their name comes up very, very dirty. And they're desperate young people in the university, in college.
How does it happen? The messaging. Is it always positive or sometimes you attack someone?
You know, politicians have different ideologies. A politician will come to us and say, let's say, attack so-and-so. So when you give us the data and let's say you attack somebody so-and-so, we'll go and verify on the basis of the ground and then send it to the individuals to go and share the information or the narrative.
I think the youngest social media handler I know is 25, and he's running a whole political party. But you would never know that. Very young. So it's not just about poverty, it's also opportunity. For some of them, they are viewing it as a way to make money during this period.
So how much does it cost to have a hashtag online? How much do they pay? And if they pay you, How much do you pay your team per person?
The minimum I've done is 30,000 Kenya shillings. And with that, after doing the content creation and whatever, I'll have like 10,000 to give to the 10 people who helped me do. Now I'll give them 1,000 each for that 1 hour of trending that hashtag. Or maybe 1,500 if it goes up to 6 hours.
Hata mwingine si tulishangaa. Wengine wakasema hatujalipwa sisi miezi 2. Hakuna pesa, unajua walikuwa kama 200, wengine walifika mpaka 300. Kazi yao ilikuwa ni hiyo tu asubuhi, kuchafua majina ya watu. Ndio tukashangaa, mnatupiga kwa sababu ya hii. Na nyinyi watoto wetu.
Propaganda is part of politics. Without propaganda, you may not win an election. Anywhere in the world.
They write anything about you, communicate anything about you. You saw the pictures. Hivi walifanya ndugu yetu Mahesa kitu. Sasa hiyo sasa anajitetea kuna
kulikuwa na zile kanda ambazo zilikuwa zinasambaa katika mtandao wa kijamii. Ungependa kuzungumzia swala hilo?
La.
Kwa nini labda?
Sitaki kupatia hesabu kwamba mimi siasa nafanya, natumia resources ya kutoka hapa mpaka hapa. Sitaki siasa chafu.
Due to the proliferation of misinformation, online abuse and bullying, even the head of state, President Uhuru Kenyatta, had to reassess his use of Twitter. Nowadays, he communicates via social media using the State House Kenya handle on all platforms.
Hata Twitter mnaona na hiyo, mimi niliondoka huko. Ngaona hii kitu ni bure, ni matusi tu, hakuna kitu kingine inaendelea hapa. Right? Unakaa hapo unasoma hulali, nini wanasema nini? Huyu sasa wewe unapiga simu, unaona vile huyu mtu amenituka.
These are only a few strategies being used to manipulate perceptions in politics, with the hope of winning some and losing some. The fundamental question was, why go to such lengths? Do crowds, both physical and virtual, truly translate to votes?
Those big crowds can also be deceptive. You can have people cheer you, you can have people come to your meetings, but then again, election day is a whole business, getting people out to come out and vote.
For you to run well politics, you can't miss the arm of intelligence. You must invest seriously in intelligence. Intelligence will tell you how popular you are when people are going. In fact, these are people who just report to you and don't sit with you.
There are many people I have seen who get through and win elections without even a single rally.
When I am doing my campaigns, yes, I do the big rallies, but the ones that I focus on are the town hall meetings.
If you want to know that you're popular on the ground, allow yourself go to a crowd that is unmobilized.
The issue of why many of the youths at the rallies do not vote came up as well.
Around 60% of those who fill the crowds don't vote. Serious voters stay home. Go and check on the voting day. See how many old men are on there queuing the line. How many very old women are queuing the line.
Kwa nini huyu kijana hawezi enda kwa line pale kupiga kura? Same mwanasiasa. Anakuja usiku. Kesho si kura inapigwa. Anakuja usiku. Anasema ile ndio stronghold ya ule jamaa. Sawa. So kitu tutafanya ni hivi. Anaenda kwa hiyo ward. Ya stronghold ya huyu anaingia usiku. Anatafuta vijana. Anatafutiwa vijana na hiyo area. Anatoa do. Wanalewa. Hao vijana wanalewa. Wanalewa mpaka kitu kama saa 9. Anarudi hii side yake. Sasa hii side yake watu watalewa sana. Hii side yake anatafuta wale watu wa ule opponent wake, wale wako hii side. Hebu aite. Kumbe mimi nataka kununua. Ule jamaa atawasaidia na nini? Hiyo ndio unapata au wanachaze au ndio wanaweka hiyo chanzo. Kupea vijana pombe usiku asubuhi nafika, vijana wanakuja late kama wamama walishapanga laini na wazee.
There was a huge turn-up in areas that were strongly pro-Jubilee across the country. It's because we made a deliberate effort to ensure that there are people who made it their work to ensure that in a particular polling station, there are people who are keeping the numbers and observing, and guys are asking themselves, people are like, so-and-so, who hasn't come? And people make phone calls and they follow up. So it's a whole exercise.
Moving forward, there are still questions that will need answers. Among them is how the masses will be able to pinpoint misinformation, how the country will safeguard against campaign finance abuses that could result in voter bribery, how peace will be maintained, and what role the youth will play in the August 2022 general election.
They say it's a big rich town. I just come from the poorest part.
Unajua mwanasiasa ni mtu ni mjanja sana, mimi nasema hivyo. Na that's when najaribu kuambia, unaona kijana kama amepata heri nyingine, hata wamama hata vijana ni wajanja, anawachana na hiyo area. Hiyo area inakuwa anajua ana capture hiyo area. Hii area ni kuna adui yangu. Adui si ati adui ni nini? Adui ni wale akili wako nayo ni akili ya utajiri. Lakini ile area akikuja, mheshimiwa, umerudi, anatoa 100, anaona watu wanagawana wakingangana, hiyo area ni rafiki zake.
Hakuna venye watakuja watengeneze kabisa wa develop kila kitu, waseme mayuthizi mavibanda za kisasa saa hizi tumewatengenezea ndio hizi. Hakuna kutoka. Wanakuacha na hiyo njaa, ndio wakikuja next time bado utatoka sababu ya hiyo njaa.
Ile ni vijana wenyewe wanatafuta hiyo kazi, wanaitafuta kabisa. Kama hawaiti wanakutafuta, wanaturusha leo tunaenda wapi?
I just came from the poorest part.
In most poor nations, resources are used as a process of control or as a means of control. We are actually better in a significant manner because at least we have devolved government in which we have a budget for accounting.
Kuna vitu wenye naambiana vijana, unaweza pata 20 bob, unasave 10 kama mko group. So hii group mkisave 10, hii 10 mkienda bank pale, I think waweze kataa kuwapatia loan kama mko na idea kwa kitu mnataka kufanya ya kuendelesha mbele. So unapata vijana wadu kidogo sana. Challenge yenye iko kubwa ni vijana wameweka maeneo yao kwa wanasiasa.
On the subject of money spent by politicians during campaigns, the IEBC proposed various rules that would have capped campaign spending. However, the proposal was rejected.
I don't understand how you can open your account with strangers managing your account, that they want to control your expenditure, and then they want you to run. No, that is not practical.
We have to have a cap of how much people can donate to you, and we need to make it up and up. Because right now, hakuna hata vile mtu anazojua nani amekupea pesa. So the elections are generally for those who are rich enough, and the ones who are not rich, if they have rich friends. And so it locks out young men who have good ideas, who actually might be good legislators, or who might be good governors.
I think the digital space must be regulated, just like the way you regulate the mainstream media. You know you have to report factual things. But it is unfortunate that we don't wait for the mainstream media stations to give us information.
The statutory organs, the DCI, the DPP, the police, they should really look at existing laws, couple them together to ensure that we teach certain people a lesson.
A lot of time is spent on elections, but not about our future. And I'm quite disappointed that after every election, we immediately start another campaign. and young people between 25 and 50 needs to start saying, you know what, where is Kenya headed? I hope the youth get engaged, and I hope they get engaged for the right reasons.
So they must not be cheated that they're going to these meetings simply to not to look for the best leadership, but for coins or notes of money. It's really like buying your own damnation and your own destruction.
Sydney Chazima, NTV Special Report.